Dr. Amos Mensah. I'm a lecturer in the Department of Agricultural Economics, Agribusiness and Extension. I teach international trade, agribusiness, resource economics, climate change, and other things. All right.
Okay, so I wanted to know what you think the E-levy is or what you've heard about E-levy so far.
Well, the E-levy, what is it? According to the government, is a tax on electronic transaction. So that's what the government is saying, and we have to take it like that. What do people say and what do people think about it so far? So far, there has been a pushback, or I would say a negative reaction from what people say, both on social media and on the physical interaction with people. What do I say about it? I have a lot to say about it, but I personally think it's a regressive type of tax at this particular point of our economic situation. Economically, when you are under such harsh economic situation, you rather will want to look for policies that will encourage money circulation in the system. So people being able to transact, people be able to flow money freely from one person to another, so that the economy will kick back or start back. But if you have a policy or a system where it restricts, or people are afraid or are not willing to transact either physically or electronically, you are actually shrinking your economy again. You are making the situation worse. And we saw the reaction of the general population. Right after the introduction, people started withdrawing, what they call panic withdrawal. And then just before May 1st, people actually, you could see that there was almost chaotic situation where some of the mobile vendors intentionally did not go to work to avoid withdrawal. The banking systems and the apps also actually were not functioning properly. So people just want to withdraw. And the intention is they don't want to transact electronically. Remember, what is the basis for the E-levy? It's based on previous transactions, calculation of previous transactions, which happened during COVID era where people were at home, forced to stay at home. And if you are forced to stay at home and you cannot, or you are trying to avoid physical contact, somehow a rational person will try to transact electronically to minimize contact. And so if you base your calculation on that particular quantum of amount during a COVID period and project that you're going to receive even more or the same in a non-COVID time, the calculation is wrong, first and foremost, because now people can physically go and transact. So you expect the money to go down. So that 7 whatever million, for me, is an overestimation. Then this overestimation is going to cause trouble for you because you have budgeted with 7 million and you are likely not to raise that one, because people in the first year will want to prove to you, the government, that we are not going to transact electronically for you to tax. Right? So the money will go down. Secondly, we are not in a COVID period where people have the freedom and people really do enjoy interacting with others. Somebody will intentionally go to the mall to buy things because of the interaction that they will have. Not because they just travel and buy something small, but they like the interaction. So remember, the electronic transaction is also going to go down, secondly. And so all this is going to actually shrink the expected money that they want to generate from the whatever the E-levy. It's not going to give them that one. That's the first thing. The second thing is the fact that we are trying to gradually move from the physical transaction, right? There's a cost printing money. There's a cost always printing money. So as people move electronically, you, the central government, you're actually reducing the cost of physically printing money. It costs you a lot. Right? People can transact without you touching any physical money. So you are saving from that point of view as a government. So you, the government, will rather find ways and means to encourage movement from the physical economy to the electronic economy to save you. Now, the second thing that they talk about during the E-levy thing, and I'm afraid most academics do not even talk about, if you're not in parliament, is the fact that all mobile operators that are operating the E-levy pay tax on the revenue they generate to the government. So the fact that the government claim is not being taxed is a lie. Whatever revenue MTN or Vodafone or whatever generate on the E-levy, they have to pay revenue tax. They have to pay tax on it to the government. That is a fact. What is missing in the whole discussion? Can anybody tell me how much money has been paid as tax to the government since the introduction of Mumbo? It's missing from the literature. Government is even afraid to mention that money, right? Because if you mention that money, you realize that money that they are, all the mobile network, is more than what you want to tax right now. And so why are they hiding that number? Why is the finance minister not telling us? This is the tax we get from MTN, Vodafone, just before this moment, right? Now the second thing is, if you have such a thing, the more people transact, the more they pay that 1% to the mobile operators, and the more you tax from that 1%, isn't it? So if people move away from it, it means that your tax base is also going to reduce. Remember, I've told you that the quantum of money that they are expected to raise will not be achieved. It's going to reduce. Plus the fact that you're going to lose even the physical money that was already assured you. It's going to reduce, right? So the government is rather to introduce a regressive tax that is going to affect the government itself, right? So if Dr. Mensah, is part of the discussion, I say yes, let's look at it. But I would rather propose the exact opposite of what they are doing. How do I do it? For every 100 cedis that you transfer, we give you 1 cedi back instead of taxing you 1 cedi. Just think about it. This is more or less like a payback or an inducement for you to transact more electronically. Now, if I know that for every 100 cedis I transact, actually, in a way, I see a kickback of 1 cedi into my mobile wallet, it feels good. It forces people to come. You capture people who are not even willing and ready to go to the mobile network, rather to go to. Remember, the moment that one happens, more transactions going to go on, more taxes going to be raised, and it will ship more money to the government, rather, right? So we are talking about economic people of around 18 to 19 million, rather than we are 32. So if you take the children out of it and you talk about economic people like you and people who will transact, we are talking about roughly 19 million people. Just imagine migrating all of them, willing and ready to even at the more pay electronically instead of physically, because they are getting some kickback. Just imagine the effect. Now, all of a sudden, also willingly, people have submitted their data to you. You know exactly how much they spend. So we are moving from the dark and informal sector to a formalized sector through the Momo. Right? You'll be able to go to the database and say, Maxwell actually transacted this and this last year amount. And it will be there as a record. As compared to if I transact things physically, you don't really know what I use my money for it. So you are actually going to go back to the stage where we are trying to move people from informal to formal. This Momo tax is going to reinforce the physical cash environment. The physical cash environment has 2 negative effects on the government. The fact that people will physically be attacked, right? Yeah. So the attack on people is going to hurt the economy. Yeah. If a medical doctor gets attacked because somebody wants to get his 200 cedi from his pocket, that medical doctor will not be able to operate your child, and your child will die. If I get attacked, I will not come to classroom and teach you. So it's have a physical effect on it. Plus the loss in terms of value of money, right? All these things were not taken into account. Just to make your video conversation very short, a lot of things were not taken into account. What they claim to be a stakeholder consultation was not a stakeholder consultation, because I can say as a lecturer that they did not consult the academics and the universities to get our input into what they are saying. And then they did a post-stakeholder consultation. That's after the introduction, went around in some small fancy areas to preach about it. That's also not a proper stakeholder, right? Because they didn't really get the information from the people to change something. They just wanted to tell this is what we want to do, and we will do it, whether I like it or not. That's not a stakeholder consultation, right? So if they have actually done a real proper stakeholder, non-partisan stakeholder, and they would have done things a bit differently. The reception would have been differently, and the effect on the economy would have been more positive than negative. Now we expect from my understanding or from my expertise as an economist, we are going to have a blowback. It's going to have effect on the economy. It's going to have an effect on our migration from physical to electronic economy. It's going to affect us a bit, and this is going to take time. Now we have a political situation where the opposition party have already proposed that they are going to abolish it. That's also going to have effect on the generation. People will intentionally make sure that it fails or it brings some hardship so that it will give an incentive for the next coming government to abolish it. Economics is more or less about perception. Okay, economics and the way the economy behaves. It's got very little to do with your actual delivery than perception. That's how economic behaves. If a meteorologist says that it's going to rain tomorrow and doesn't rain, nothing happens. But if an economist or economic agent like Bloomberg say that Ghana's economy is going to collapse tomorrow, before 1 o'clock today, everybody will rush to the bank and take their money. And tomorrow has not taken place and it has not actually collapsed. But the mere perception, the saying, will force people. So perception and belief influence economic behavior more than the actual movements of goods and things. And that's exactly the bad perception and E-levy is going to have on our economy. So we wait to see. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.